Next up, we'll be moving from pure Polkadot-enabled multi-chain DeFi into multi-chain supply chains with Ziga from Trace Labs, who works on Origin Trail. Origin Trail is dedicated to making supply chains work sustainably by enabling trusted knowledge exchange. Leveraging Polkadot to ensure blockchain interoperability, Origin Trail is used by leading global organizations in trillion-dollar industries. Ziga, the Polkadot Decoded stage is yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Peter, and good evening to all Polkadot community members, and also good evening to our tracers, Origin Trail community members. It is my pleasure to be here on the main stage of the Polkadot community. My name is Žiga. I'm one of the co-founders of the Origin Trail ecosystem, and as Peter pointed out, Origin Trail is dedicated towards making supply chains work. And what I'm going to talk about today in this presentation is about our 10 years journey towards achieving greater transparency and trust in various supply chains, starting with local food supply chains. And what we have nowadays is essentially helping companies that total over 1.5 trillion US dollars in purchasing power. So this is kind of a transition. And what I'm also going to be focusing on, and also the release that we're having at the end of this presentation, is touching upon the Polkadot integration and why Polkadot integration is crucial for our multi-chain sustainable path towards making supply chains work. So why exactly do we need supply chain sustainability, and what exactly is it all about? If you look at the year 2020, we have been hit by several catastrophes. Now, one of them you might remember, especially those from the land down under, is the fires that broke out in Australia, widespread fires, and also in South America, you saw a lot of widespread fires, and all of those natural kind of catastrophes somehow originate from unsustainable way of setting up the supply chains. Now, moving forward, we are still very much deep into the COVID-19 crisis. And what is striking in the COVID-19 crisis is not only the origins of it, it is also the way we are tackling the crisis itself. Here in Europe and also across the globe, according to Interpol, there have been many products, fake products sold to hospitals, to governments. And in that way, we were less able to fight the COVID-19 crisis. So those two examples somehow show us how poorly equipped we are to tackle major crises with today's setting of supply chains. And last but not least, also consumers are parts of the supply chains, and the way conglomerates, big organizations, online companies are treating our data is absolutely appalling. We have no control over our own data, and this is something that we also need to take into consideration. So essentially, what we do at Origin Trail is that we believe sustainable supply chains are only possible by allowing people and organizations to benefit from trusted data and knowledge exchange. Now, I'm going to go a bit more deeper into what I mean by saying knowledge exchange. But first off, let's look into the history of Origin Trail. Origin Trail started off as a kind of a rudimentary project already in 2010, although it wasn't until 2013, after the college, when we, together with co-founders, Branimir, Tomasz, and myself, started the company and started developing kind of centralized systems to tackle supply chain transparency, starting with food supply chains. And later on, we soon found out that there's this cool technology called blockchain that could be offering more integrity to data exchanges in supply chains. When we started implementing blockchain, starting with Ethereum, mainnet back in 2016, we quickly found out that blockchains have certain kind of shortcomings, if you want to use them in supply chains. First off, they lack certain database features you would need in order to be able to track products. And secondly, and perhaps more obviously, costs may be very much prohibitive towards using chains like Ethereum for supply chain purposes. And this kind of the path drew us into kind of China, into different interesting programs such as Walmart. We were selected as one of 3 most fit solutions to tackle food supply chain issues in China back in 2017. And then in 2017-18, we also launched the Origin Trail open source blockchain agnostic protocol. And throughout our journey, we had been relying mostly on one chain. And this was, kind of a critical shortcoming which prohibited us to grow more quickly because, in supply chains, it's all about exchanging data. It's not that much about transactions. And if you want to exchange data, you need to have more capable, more scalable, decentralized systems. And this is when, enters Polkadot back in 2020, September, or actually during the summer, we decided to go into the kind of, together with Polkadot entities, into a quest to find the most appropriate solution to make supply chain data exchange more scalable and underpin the Origin Trail's multi-chain direction. And we were very glad that we were received very, with a very, very capable team at the Parity side, entered the Substrate Builders program. And today we're building an extension of Origin Trail protocol, which is supporting the multi-chain vision, leveraging Polkadot technology. And at the end of the presentation, I'm also going to be talking about the release that we're having today. Now, supply chains are very complex, and what we see here is kind of a chain. You can see in supply chains, data is very much shielded within data silos. And by having data put into data silos, you can, in a very limited way, follow what's going on in supply chains. And supply chains, although we use the word chain, are not chains, they're actually ecosystems. And if you want to break free, so if we want to kind of release the data out of these chains of data silos, we need to instill the ecosystem thinking. And also having Polkadot kind of mentality and Polkadot tools available, you're actually leveraging the ecosystem mentality rather than just having this linear mentality. And this is very, very important because we need to build at least 3 value propositions in supply chains if we want to improve the sustainability of supply chains. And first of them is interoperability. We have many legacy systems within supply chains, but none of those legacy systems talk to each other because many of them are not following certain global standard for semantic interoperability, or so to say, systems are not speaking the same language. And now going a step forward, we have plenty blockchain ecosystems currently, but then again, blockchain ecosystems are not talking to each other. And this is where, Polkadot enters as a very, very crucial element. Secondly, interconnectivity. Data needs to be linked. If we want to follow what's going on in a supply chain, in a complex supply chain, we need to make sure that we can link data together and then follow products or follow services or be able to see what has transpired in supply chains. Last but not least, if we want to be really sure that no one is meddling in supply chains, we also need to bring in certain game theoretical models. And this is where blockchain is highly, highly promising. But we need to make a step further. We need to make more chains available to the companies, to the individuals in supply chains, so that they can always select the most performant one, and that they can always select the chains that actually are already at the stage where you already have interoperability with other existing ecosystem. And then again, Polkadot is at this stage ready to support such a mission. Now, what is Origin Trail? Origin Trail, in essence, is not a blockchain. It's rather a middleware, decentralized network that supports decentralized knowledge graph. And this decentralized knowledge graph is being underpinned by blockchain to offer all those 3 layers of value propositions: interoperability, interconnectivity, and data integrity. And furthermore, what Origin Trail also adds to the supply chains, and this is also very important, is the capability to shield sensitive data so that companies still can collaborate, can exchange data, but still they are the ones who are in control of which data they share and with whom, with which companies. Now, what I'm going to go into right now is just into a few examples of where Origin Trail is being used currently. Origin Trail, actually the Trace Labs, which is the core technology developer of Origin Trail, is the exclusive partner of the British Standards Institution. The British Standards Institution is a 120-year-old organization with over 70 offices across the world. And there is no supply chain in this world into which BSI is not tapping into. And so does the Origin Trail follow their footprint. We also track rail part materials in Switzerland, helping Swiss Federal Railways ensure safety of their passengers. And one of interesting example is also the personal data management application that we developed in order to help companies comply with the GDPR when they're collecting personal data. And there are a plethora of other applications Origin Trails being used. Now, to kind of give you a bit more meat into how kind of what the end application look like, perhaps one of the most kind of clear examples of how you as a consumer can use the application, which would then interoperate with Origin Trail and later on with the Polkadot ecosystem, is by taking the app, scan a product in a store like this chicken, and then input the expiry date, and then see where exactly this chicken is originating from. You can also see that all the credentials, all the attestations, certifications that were awarded to this producer are actually in place, that no one has meddled with all that data. So kind of a very, very simple example. Now, this is kind of a food and beverage supply chains. This is a very interesting example, which has been quite active recently within the Trace Labs. And this is kind of the traceability initiative that we launched together with the British Standards Institution, essentially helping an Irish distillery, which just recently also received $50 million from the likes of Bono from U2, to kind of instill a radical way of seeing where the ingredients are coming from, and then also to kind of instill radical trust into the whiskey products. Now, in addition to kind of a static provenance data, consumers can also interact and also get information from the fields real time. It's highly important that we are kind of touching the subject of supply chains. There is at least one staggering statistic which shows that in the UK, more than 2/3 of managers within the food production companies would say that they cannot vouch for authenticity and provenance of their products. So a very, very important mission. Now, this example of the radical transparency and trust in international trade, a so-called SCAN association, something that we're extremely proud of. One of the reasons is perhaps because it is touching a very, very formidable supply chain. The partners within the SCAN association, which is a supplier compliance audit network, include Walmart. It also includes JCPenney. So 40% essentially of imports to the US, representing some 1.5 trillion of purchasing power. And what we do there, we essentially help those companies exchange auditing reports on some 20,000 Asian factories and also factories from all over the world. And then in that way, kind of achieve a better efficiency when it comes to auditing companies from abroad. What we see here on the right side is kind of a view into how the application looks like. On the right-hand side, you also see the way data is being verified, all the parameters that companies are following when they're deciding to admit or not admit certain supplier to the United States. So a very, very vast scale project, which already shows you how kind of well spread the decentralized technology is within supply chains, global supply chains. And just today we have launched, actually we have released, our partner has released another important project within that happens within 2/3 of countries in development. And that project is specifically geared towards the pharmaceuticals. Now, Origin Trail has received international recognition from China. Walmart China is supporting Origin Trail, BSI, also some other important companies such as Oracle Blockchain, to which we also try to build interoperability bridges, and the World Economic Forum has written quite extensively about Origin Trail. Now, what we are very much excited about today is that we already have a very, very good trajectory with Polkadot. We essentially have had Parity Technologies join Trace Alliance's working group on decentralization and tokenomics, and Trace Labs later on also joined Substrate Builders program. And we are very proud that today we already have a test net of a Starfleet chain, which is essentially Origin Trail substrate chain. And this alpha test network will now, with a certain expedited tempo, transition towards the Starfleet testnet parachain launch on either Rococo or West End in a very, very kind of expedited manner. We are also fast-tracking full integration of Starfleet into Polkadot in Q3. Now, this is at least a few months faster than we previously anticipated, and in that way, we're going to make Origin Trail decentralized knowledge graph functionalities fully available for the entire Polkadot community. And fresh out today, you can go to our GitHub and you can read about the RFC published, and we also have a blog post coming out right now. And in there, you're going to learn about our trajectory towards bidding for parachain and towards full Polkadot integration. Thank you so much for your attention. I welcome you to join our kind of efforts to make supply chains work, because it's a joint effort, and with the collaborative and ecosystem approach, the approach we see with Polkadot, I'm sure we're going to be successful together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for one or two questions here from the audience. A couple of them you sort of answered towards the end. So obviously, like looking at a multi-chain future, Origin Trail is still going to exist in its Ethereum implementation, but you also now are going to have a substrate chain. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how that relationship between the two sort of nodes of Origin Trails on multiple networks is going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said, Origin Trail is essentially supporting a decentralized knowledge graph. And looking into a few months earlier, when Origin Trail was merely running on Ethereum network, we saw that the cost of recording the data into the Origin Trail decentralized network using Ethereum could even amount to $100, and this is completely unsustainable for any supply chains, let alone food supply chains. Now, using our own substrate-based technology, not only we are seeing that we can put those costs significantly to a minimum share of what we saw previously, but also we can bring in other specific features that are being offered by the substrate and later on by the Polkadot integration. So essentially, Origin Trail's decentralized knowledge graph could be offered to any other Polkadot related builders for the purposes which are native to